Hi, students. How are you doing? Welcome to Naya Sim or Cimnanya. Thank you so much for the support. Hope you all are doing great. So I came across this woman's video. I think she is Ukraine. So she was talking about white feminism is not feminism, right? And her video is really very thought provoking. I love it. She did a great job, but there are some things that I also do not agree because when we talk about racism, feminism, and all that, I mean, she said something that most women do not know that I mean, they are acting under white supremacists and all that, and also white privilege. And I am going to say that they know all of that because I have really brought so many videos here and how they talk and how they act. It shows that they are really very much aware of it. And the truth is that you cannot say that you are a feminist or I mean your white feminism is all showing you're a feminist and all that. But you all do not take time out to address the racism towards the marginalized groups, especially Black people, right? And you people do not even have you all do not have the time and, to speak to one another on how harmful some of the things they do to especially our community and other communities, how harmful it is, right? The truth is that when it comes to all this racism and all that, I mean, all these people do not even want to speak on it. Why? Because they feel like, why do we have to end it? But we all know that these people really have a very strong power to eradicate racism. Are they even fighting to do it? Of course, no. If they do, who will they? Now, let's get into this video.
If the white feminist creators that you're listening to do not ever take the time to address the marginalization of other communities, to address intersectionality, to address racism, to address what they're learning and address situations thoughtfully from that perspective, then you are, in fact, listening to a white feminist. Derogatory. Some of us are really missing the feminist part. Like at the end of the day, you're just listening to a white woman speak. Like she's not coming at things from a feminist perspective because the most important part of feminism is that intersectionality part. Without that part, we have nothing. We don't have feminism. I can actually illustrate to you why that is, but before we go any further, what we're not going to do in the comment section is try to guess or shout out whom this is about. As a white woman myself, I believe that these issues go deeper than the white woman that they start with, okay? A lot of us have these ideas still, even if we're working on eradicating them, even if we're working on that kind of self-awareness. A lot of us are still prone to these kinds of reactions, prone to these kinds of thoughts. I think it's okay for the affected creators to call out the person directly. I have no problem with that. What I'm not gonna do as a white woman myself is make this about like a singular instance, a singular white woman, because truthfully, a lot of us still have these attitudes. And so I believe that as a white woman creator, it would be harmful for me to say that, oh, so-and-so is bad because they did this, and then have the rest of us white women pile on as if we're not part of the problem and as if we are completely exempt from that kind of behavior. And if we really believe that intersectionality is the key to true feminism and true equality, then the other thing that we need to accept with that is that we're going to be working on eradicating racism from the feminist community as we go. Just how it's going to have to be. And the Black women and women of color on this app have been telling us this. This is not a secret. Okay? Most, if not all of us, are prone to this kind of shit. This is just white supremacy at work, and it is doing its job. But the best thing that we can actually do is make this a learning moment, okay? Even if not for that one specific person, but for the rest of us. And the second thing is, I have a podcast, finally. I know a lot of you have been asking. The best part is that it's not just me. I have two amazing co-hosts, The Sovereign Woman and Quinn Veer. Y'all may not know her from TikTok, but she's over on Twitter. She's over on Blue Sky. She's making the transition. So we have 4 episodes out for y'all. It's called The Audacity, and you can find us anywhere that you listen to your podcasts. Moving on. So this right here is why I say that feminism without intersectionality is not feminism. Feminism at its core is about equality, right? For women, femmes, marginalized communities. If that's the core belief of feminism, then please explain to me why. In America, women were given the right to vote in 1920, and yet Black women couldn't vote until 1965. So that right there is not feminism. All right? That means that the white women chose their whiteness. Okay. The reason I say that is because Black women were a huge part of this movement, this 1920 movement. Okay. They did not have their own separate, movement until this movement was over. You know why? Because this movement kicked them out. When Susan B. Anthony and all the other white women were going to go march in DC, march on the Capitol and ask the white men for their rights back, the Black women said, well, we want to come too. We want to be part of that march. And Susan B. Anthony said, we're either going to have a white procession, a Black procession, or no procession at all. So y'all need to go. This was never about women for Susan B. Anthony and the other women. This was about having proximity to the same power that men do. Because had it been about women, they would be like, all women should have the right to vote. They would not have gone to the men to ask for their rights, and then on top of that, accept conditions that would leave other women out of this very important amendment, that would deny other women their suffrage, the women that fought with them, alongside them, all leading up to this 1920 movement. They just looked at them and said, thanks, but no thanks. Like, yeah, you helped us get this off the ground. You were there to do all the grunt work. You were there to sort of help fill out the numbers. You were there to organize, to protest with us, all that. What we're doing here is we're appealing to whiteness. We're not appealing to men as women. We're appealing to white men as white women. And that's very important because this is exactly what some of your favorite creators are doing. They are centering white men, or men in general, and they're actually failing to make what they're doing about actual women. It's so much easier to make feminism this gender war, men versus women. And while yes, that's a huge part of it, I make videos about that all the time. It's not bad to point out the ways in which men obviously mistreat women. But it's the same exact problem as when us white people say like, oh, I don't see color. It's exactly this kind of like, I don't see color, I don't see race kind of thinking that leads us to more white supremacy, because it ignores the plight and the struggles of people of color. That's exactly why you do need to see color, because then you wouldn't be saying things so flippantly, because it makes it so easy for you to ignore the efforts of those people and just brush them off to the side. That's exactly what happened with Susan B. Anthony and all the white feminists when they turned around and said to all the Black women, like, this isn't about you. Let us do this thing first, and then you guys can do your thing. Like, then you guys can have your procession or whatever. Like, we'll worry about you later. That's exactly where it becomes no longer feminism. It's when you as a woman start thinking that all women are the same. All that all women care about is like how men treat us. Or no, I feel like that's why it's so easy for white women to dismiss a lot of the concerns of Black women and women of color, because they're like, why are you so worried about that? And it's like, we're back to square one. The white women often make feminism about their own issues. They tend to center themselves in the discourse just like men do. It is not your place to try and take the minority, the rightful minority spot from a person of color because you believe that you are somehow more marginalized than they are. That is peak whiteness. That is peak self-centeredness. And as a white woman, you are the man of women, okay? Black women and women of color made that very clear. They said, if I'm choosing between a white man and a white woman in the woods or in the office or wherever, I'm gonna choose the white man. And instead of doing the same introspection that they were asking men to do, the white women turned around and took that as a threat and took that as an insult. And that's what happens when you don't see color. That's what happens when you focus your feminism on just men. Another really important thing that I believe about feminism is that we cannot operate out of a lack mentality the way that we have been. Right? This is the same thing that it comes back to with like Susan B. Anthony. She was operating out of a lack mentality. She said, if we take this to the white men and they see Black women in the crowd, they're gonna say no. And it's like, no, that's your racism speaking. The men would have seen a sea of women. You're not telling on the men at that point, you're telling on yourself. Men are afraid of women. Men are afraid, especially of women in large numbers. Had Susan B. Anthony and the white feminists in 1920 been like, yeah, you know what? Let's all do this. It shouldn't have even been a question. Y'all were here all along. We're all going to get in and we're all going to march on the Capitol. Those rights would have been given because they were given to like half the amount of women. So imagine if the amount of women was like double or more, because Black women historically turn out at a much higher rates than white women, because it's their marginalization that makes their fight for basic human rights so necessary. And it's white women over and over and over again that turn a blind eye to that because they quote unquote don't see race. And they quote unquote don't see what the big deal is. Or like, well, there's more important issues. And this is why we stay stuck. This is why we stay in the same loop when really the exit is right there. Like it's a roundabout, right? The roundabout has different exits. And we just keep passing by all of them. Every single one of them. We're just... Because every time we try to veer off and out of the roundabout, the white women grab the steering wheel and just keep turning it in the same direction. The same direction, because we're not willing to look at directly at the white supremacy that lives inside of us. And instead of listening to other women's voices who are saying, hey, this was not okay. What you said about me is not okay. What I've had to do to get here is not as small and flippant as you're making it sound. It is flash in the pan kind of thing. I actually had to work really hard. I had to fight and dig and claw my way to the place where I am now. And for you to dismiss that and be like, oh yeah, but other women should really have this kind of spot and like other women should have this kind of audience is very much, I don't see color. It's very much, I'm not appealing to womanhood. I'm appealing to my own issues that affect me personally. This is how feminism gets divided time and time again to the point where it is dysfunctional. Just another tool of oppression against women. You know, this is why people make fun of feminists. This is why, because we don't take each other seriously. We don't care about the plights of other women that are women. We are all women first. We are all women, femmes, LGBTQ, marginalized communities first. You know, there's a reason that we put the white cis man at the top as the representation of, you know, sort of everything that is working against us, because it's everything that's working against us is all three of those things, right? And not just three, you know, you add able-bodied in there, right? You add rich in there. There's so many intersections. But when you fail to understand that just because you have something in common with the enemy, that doesn't cancel it out. That means you need to look at yourself too, right? So if you're a white, cis woman, right, don't assume that the white and cis is canceled out and this is all about just men versus women. If you are white and non-cis, don't assume that this isn't include your whiteness and is only about heteronormativity. The biggest thing dividing America today, and feminists in America today especially, is the racism piece. That's the piece. Because it's very often the most deeply harmful, and it makes it very difficult for people to get ahead and or even be recognized for what it is they have done. But the problem with making just men the enemy is that not only does it center them and gives them a lot of unearned power over us, is also the fact that it makes us blind to intersectionality, especially racial intersectionality. It becomes really easy for white women to center themselves because they believe that their marginalization is greater than the marginalization that this country was built upon. This is where America differs from a lot of other countries. White women were never, ever, ever as marginalized as women of color were here. White women, in fact, got to profit and benefit off the labor of Black women and the enslavement of Black women and Black men. That's why we can't look at things like, oh, women, women, women. No, it's much more complicated than that here in America. And this is why when a lot of white feminists miss that part, their content at some point will turn into white supremacy type content because they are actually not aware of white supremacy. The easiest way to fall into white supremacy is to not be aware of it. It is the unawareness of it that makes it so dangerous. And then because you're unaware of it, oftentimes you will actually come to lean on the tenets of white supremacy culture in order to defend your actions, because you are not seeing the white supremacy itself as harmful. You're not seeing it as a factor because you're not constantly learning about these things and unlearning the things that you need to be unlearning. So to you, all of these things seem normal. You know, the right to comfort, fear of open conflict, all of these things seem so right to you to be like, no, this is wrong. Instead of being like, no, it's the white supremacy that's wrong and I was wrong. This is what leads to white people feeling so attacked. They are, in fact, living off of white supremacy culture and profiting off of white supremacy culture, at the same time refusing to admit that because they are not aware of what white supremacy culture is. So if a feminist creator that you like keeps only ever leaning on it's women versus men, and they are not bringing white supremacy and the deconstruction of white supremacy into their content at all, they're gonna end up saying some stupid shit someday. That's all. Feminism is ultimately a closed loop in America, especially. It's honestly so much easier for racially homogenous countries to have any type of like feminist movements because they are not fractured like this, because people are not so willfully blind and ignorant, because they just don't have those things to be ignorant about. And we really need to get serious about this, ladies. Stay safe out there. I love you so much.
This is all I got from this video. And sincerely speaking, I am going to say that her content is very thoughtful, right? Still, I do not trust any of them, but her content is absolutely very great, very beautiful. And she said what she said, right? And so people really do not understand that feminism is white supremacy, and that is what it's been. She also made mention that white women, most of them, live under, under white supremacy, but still do not agree or do not agree that it's white supremacy or their privileges and all of that. I personally feel like they knew that they have privilege. I mean, it's really very, it's kind of weird, or kind of weird to say that they do not know about their privilege or they do not know about their white supremacy. They do know. Why did I say this? I said this because I have seen them have conversations about the privileges they have, about how they uphold their supremacy, and how when discussing that, it's either they start being defensive, and then in the end, if you ask them questions like, if you think you do not have privilege, or that you are not privileged, would you for a minute give away or let go of your color, right? That is where I always know that they knew that they have privilege. They have just refused to acknowledge it or, yes, accept it. It's something that they lie about. So for that privilege or for that, they know that they have the white supremacy. So she talked about how white women or all this. Okay, before I get into that, I'm going to say that the white feminism and also Christian feminism are very similar. Just that the Christian feminists are more likely to be homophobic, very homophobic and transphobic, right? But the other one, white feminism, they do not even want to acknowledge that Black people or people that look like me have already done so much for them, and that most of the things that they are benefiting from are what people that look like me fought for, that they are sitting on top and enjoying, and also looking for a way to sit on top and press you down, like I am going to suppress you. I have said this several times, that if that white women knew the power that they uphold, that's why each time they talk about how to come together or how to fight against racism, they have so much power to end racism. But I keep saying it, if they end racism, who will they oppress? Who are they going to look down on and say, I know I am better than this person, and I am better than that person, and I am better than the other person? So they use it to hold their conscience, right? I have said several times that they also knew how powerful Black people, Black women are. They always look for a way to cover up things. Because I told you all about a woman that came out to say that if they let Kamala Harris wins, it means that their men will have to depend on Black men. So, which means that they will have to beg everything from Black men, and Black women will now become the like very powerful. So they do not also want to be minorities. That also, see, when people say that they don't know that they have their white supremacy is showing, or they have privilege, that is a fat lie. They know all of that they do not want to be the minorities because they do not want to be treated as minorities. They don't want to lose their powers and all of that. So this is always the key. One of the major reasons why they have refused to stand up for what is right. They always look for a way to be on the wrong side of the history and come back to tell you that we did this, we voted against our own interests, and we know it, and we are sorry. Yeah, take it or leave it. That is it. They know what they are doing. It's always calculated this thing. They know how hard Black women fight. So make sure that some systems are being dismantled, or Black people in general. They see all of that. I think they don't see all of that. If I say they don't see it, I must really be a liar, and I don't want to be a liar. So I am telling us the plain truth, which you all also know. So anybody coming to say that they do not know, they feel like what they know. They know. And I love the fact that she also came out speaking the truth. And if these people are ready to do the work, trust me, I don't think we will have anything to worry about when it comes to racism and the rest of it. But yeah, they are not ready to do the fight. And also, I have brought a video of a woman who said that I really want to talk about racism on my podcast and all that. My families are conservative, but I don't know how to start speaking. And every people are telling me, I don't know how to, I don't want to, I want to do this work without my family, because all her families are. So how do you want to do the work without starting from your family, your parents, your brothers that are? How do you want to do the job? You just want to do the job without them. You are not doing the job. You are probably doing it for eye service. And that doing this job is not something you do for eye service. It is something you have passion for. It is something that you know this is the truth and you want to speak. It is something that you really, sometimes you have to step on toes to do what you really want to do, especially when it comes to speaking the truth. Majority of them are not ready to do that. Some will tell you, yes, I want to do the work, but I don't want my friends to know that I am doing the work. So who are you doing the work for? Who are you doing the work with? So who are you going to talk to? Who are you going to convince? First of all, you start from they say charity begins at home. So don't leave that home to come outside and start telling me to get better when in your family that they are not even anywhere close to being better. Start from your family, then we can talk about it. See you all in my next video. Bye for now.